Hello, hi, welcome once again to M5's new English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV screen to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well let's learn English together. By the powers of the gods of English, here we are again, back in the studio, ready to get started on another glorious English lesson. How do you feel? Do you feel all right? No, do you feel all right? Good, that's better. So, here we all are, me and the crew, here in the studio, in Budapest, in the 3rd District, and you, all of you, you gods of English, out there, somewhere in Hungarian TV land, in your sitting room, sitting on your sofa, or in an armchair, or in your kitchen perhaps, standing next to the fridge, or sitting on a chair. Maybe you're in your bedroom, sitting on the bed, or perhaps you're in your bathroom, sitting in the bath. Anyway, it's not important where you are. The only thing that matters is that you're here, now, watching today's English lesson. Magic, wonderful, Dogtanian and the new Shmoo. Right, are we ready? Yes? Wonderful. So, let's begin today's lesson. Now, what do you remember from our last lesson together? Do you remember who we met? Of course you remember. You're gods of English. Okay, so who did we meet? That's right. We met some more members of Mary Benchfield's family. Do you remember which members of her family we met? Yes, of course you do. We met Mary's dad, Joe. He's a rocker and he's got jet black hair. He's also got tattoos. We met Mary's mum, Jenny. She's got grey hair and red glasses. Then we met Mary's siblings. We met her brother Gordon and her sister Jane. Gordon's got a moustache and Jane hasn't got a moustache. Jane wears glasses, but Gordon doesn't wear glasses. Gordon's got short hair and Jane's got long, curly hair. We know the different relationships between the members of the family. We know that some of the family are blood relations and others are in-laws. We know that Alfredo's mother and father are Mary's mother-in-law and father-in-law. Logically, it's the same the other way round too. Mary's dad and mum are Alfredo's father-in-law and mother-in-law. We know that the children have got parents, and the children's parents are the children's grandparents. We know that we can use grandmother, or granny, or grandma, and we can use grandfather or grandpa. We know that Mary's got 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. We know that Mary's brother is called Gordon, and we know that Mary's sister is called Jane. Great! Wizard, magician, Tim the Enchanter, David Copperfield. Okay, settle down, settle down. All right, well, we know the relationship between Mary and her siblings. They're brother and sister. But what about the relationship between Mary's husband and Mary's siblings? Well, think about what we learned about my family. My sister's got a husband. My sister's husband is called Gary. Now, what's the relationship between me and Gary? That's right, we're brothers-in-law. Gary is my brother-in-law and I'm Gary's brother-in-law. Okay, sorted. So, what's the relationship between Alfredo and Gordon? Correct-a-doodle-doo. They're brothers-in-law. Alfredo is Gordon's brother-in-law and Gordon is Alfredo's brother-in-law. Great, well done. And what about Mary's other sibling? What about Mary's sister, Jane? Well, think about the relationship between Alfredo and Mary's family. They're in-laws. So, Alfredo and Jane are brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Alfredo is Jane's brother-in-law and Jane is Alfredo's sister-in-law. Excellent. Okay, one last look at the relationships and then we'll move on to something else. I promise. Now, the last part of the relationships I want to look at today is the relationship between the children and Mary's siblings. We know the relationship between Mary's siblings and Mary's husband. They're brother-in-law and sister-in-law. But what about the relationship between Gordon and Jane and Tim, John, Elizabeth and Doreen? Well, let's look at the relationship between Gordon and his sister's children first. Gordon is the children's uncle. He's Tim's uncle, John's uncle, Elizabeth's uncle and Doreen's uncle. He's their uncle. Okay. Now, what about Jane? Well, Jane is the children's aunt. Jane is Tim's aunt, she's John's aunt, she's Elizabeth's aunt, and she's Doreen's aunt. Great. So, because he's a man, Gordon is the children's uncle, and because she's a woman, Jane is the children's aunt. The relationship is the same. Both Gordon and Jane are Mary's siblings. They're her brother and sister. But because Gordon is a man, he's his sister's children's uncle. Jane is her sister's children's aunt. Okay, have you got that? I reckon you have. Okay, let's look at the next step. We know that Gordon is the kid's uncle, and we know that Jane is the kid's aunt. But what about the relationship in the other direction? What's the relationship between the kids and their uncle and aunt? Well, Tim and John are nephews to Gordon and Jane. Tim is Gordon's nephew, and Tim is also Jane's nephew. John is Gordon's nephew, and John is also Jane's nephew. So, because they're boys, they're nephews. Okay, and what about the girls? Well, Elizabeth and Doreen are nieces to Gordon and Jane. Elizabeth is Gordon's niece, and Elizabeth is also Jane's niece. Doreen is Gordon's niece, and Doreen is also Jane's niece. Great. So, because they're girls, they're nieces, not nephews. Nephews are always boys or men. Nieces are always girls or ladies. Great! Fab! 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Twister. Curly whirly. Okay. I said that we'd look at something different. And here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs, rabbits, weasels and hamster. Here comes something new. Are you ready? I hope so, because now we're going to have a look at comparative adjectives. Whee! May the gods of English dance around with happiness. Comparative adjectives. Blimey, on a stick! Great. Okay, so first things first, what does comparative mean? Well, do you remember when we looked at two pictures and talked about the game Spot the Difference? You must remember, it was only last week. Okay, so you do remember. Good. Now, when we looked at the two tenses last week, when we looked at the present simple and the present continuous tenses, we compared them. We looked at them so that we can try to spot where they are the same and where they are different. We compared the two tenses. The verb to compare means to look at more than one thing and see the similarities and differences between the things. We compare things all the time. When we're driving, we compare the prices of petrol at different petrol stations, so we know where we can get cheap fuel. When we go to the shops, we compare prices. I can buy this can of tomatoes for 345 forints, or this can of tomatoes for 430 forints. When we want to buy a new TV, we go to a TV shop and compare different TVs. We look at the information about the TVs. We compare the different pictures. We compare the remote controls. We compare lots of things before we make a decision. Now, think about the adjective old. I am 46 years old. I'm 46. Modi, who is sitting over there, is 42 years old. He's 42. I am 46. He's 42. Now, by using a comparative adjective, I can join the two sentences together, like this. I am older. Older is a comparative adjective. It tells us that I was born before him. What about the adjective tall? Well, I'm 1 meter 89 centimeters tall. Modi is 1 meter 78 centimeters tall. I am taller. Again, taller is a comparative adjective. Now, what about looking at the sentence from the other side? Well, what if we use the opposite of old? What's the opposite of old? That's right, the opposite of old is young. So, Modi is 42 and I'm 46, so Modi is younger. And what about the other sentence? What if we use the opposite of tall? What's the opposite of tall? That's right, the opposite of tall is short, so Modi is shorter. So, as we can see in the examples, the comparative form is usually the adjective with er at the end. Old becomes older, young becomes younger, short becomes shorter. Okay, so where do you think we might find some problems? Bingo! Bonanza, Little House on the Prairie, Heidi, The Lone Ranger, Tonto. That's right, it's the famous English spelling. We can see that we add er to the adjectives old, young and short when we make the comparative form. But what about other adjectives? Okay, well, here are the rules about the spelling of the comparative form. First, we have to learn what a syllable is. A what, Gav? A syllable. What's a syllable? Well, a syllable is a part of a word which has got a vowel sound. Eh? Eh? What? 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 Potato? No. Okay, the easiest way to understand what a syllable is to think about how many sounds a word has. My name, for example, has got 2 syllables. Ga-vin. Okay. Modi's name too has got 2 syllables. Mo-di. Budapest has got 3 syllables. Bu-da-pest. So a syllable is a sound in a word. Afghanistan has got, well, how many syllables are there in the word Afghanistan? 4. Let's count them. Afghan-is-tan. 4 syllables. Okay, what about some Hungarian words? They have lots of syllables. What about this one? It's a cracker. Megengetetetlen. Blimey, oh David, Welsh, Irish, Riley. How many syllables? Let's count them. Meg, eng, get, het, tet, len. 6! And what about elfogotototlon? Elfogotototlon. 6 again. Okay, so now we know what a syllable is. What's the point? Well, the point is that for words with 1 syllable, we add er. If the word ends in vowel plus consonant, then we double the last letter before adding er. If the word ends in Y, we change the Y to I-E-R. So, Moddy's old, but I'm older. 45 degrees Celsius is hot, but 650 degrees Celsius is hotter. And 500 kilograms is heavy, but 1.5 tons is heavier. Okay, that's all we've got time for today. You've been watching me, Gav Duncan, on M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I had fun. I hope you had fun too. I'm Gav Duncan. I'm not Bungle from Rainbow, and I'm not Yoffie from Fingerbobs either. I'm Gav Duncan, and I'll see you next time for some more fun with English. See you later. Bye.